Now, let's talk about another AU today called the Amazing Digital Carnival. And some of you wondering why they call it Carnival should be a different name because this is sort of an AU. Believe it or not, Carnival does make sense with this AU because what Carnival represents. Because the difference is circuses is sort of like a 24-hour job, 9 to 5, work basically the 12 months of the year. But the only difference is they move place to place. A carnival is sort of opposite. Carnival basically stays in one place and doesn't move, but it just shuts down after the event is done. What I mean is, it sort of does the job once of a year, and that special moment it happens and shut it down and wait for the next year. In other words, but they do hire professionals or some of the people in local, but not like a circus. Circus is sort of a bunch of professionals who basically do this for a job 9 to 5, and that's sort of the difference of a carnival in the circus. And you know what? I'm quite surprised of this digital AU circus because it did something a little different that is sort of kind of basic what it's trying to do like other AU, but yet trying not to change that much, trying to be true to the original digital circus. What I mean is, this is sort of a kind of isekai but done as sort of a programming got sucked in his own video game, if you've seen that specific type of lore of isekai, because our main lead Kane, yes, he's our main lead, not Pommy, actually got sucked in the game and intended to figure out what's going on and how to escape. And that's sort of the main focus. But it makes it sort of different. It's sort of a horror video game in a way that our main lead Kane sort of figures out something is wrong, and little by little he tried to deprogram. He understands what's going on, especially every time he meets a new player or a new AI. It became sort of like a boss battle in a video game because this feels like a video game. The dialogue, the sort of options, sometimes the first person perspective of Kane, you have to press A to move forward. It's a lot of interesting ideas given to this sort of digital carnival because it's just so refreshing. Even that this AU decided to use the swap AU. If you don't know what I mean, swap basically means kind of change positions of a specific character. For example, the hero is not the hero anymore, it's the villain. The side character or lantern became sort of the main lead, or sort of the love interest becomes the psychopath murderer of the right hand man of the evil villain. And that's what I mean. They swap sort of positions of each specific character to make it different and also make the sort of interesting dynamics. What happens if you change sort of how they all met and sees how their personalities change, all people think in each other. And this was sort of making interesting. On top of all this AU has a sort of a mystery. And some of the characters sort of kind of murdered someone more than one in this video game. It's a guy sort of a scenario, but came trying to understand why. Also, a second other kind of mystery is the fact Kinger now is sort of the circus master who controls everything, but he started to lose his mind. But also he has a color. Not him, everybody has a color, but the only one who can remove a color is Kane. And that's the thing make this sort of AU so interesting, because they changed kind of a little bit like a genre. It's still playing as the video game of the original digital circus, but digital carnival as sort of mystique, horror, and video game sort of platforming in the story. And this will make it kind of unique and interesting because you kind of change the whole game and grab your attention what happened, and that's the whole point of our main lead Kane, to figure out and solve the sort of issue. Of course, before I continue on, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, not just animation, to reviews, first impressions, cartoon theories, and sometimes, if I have some spare time, cartoon breaking news. Of course, you'll like how it's going, you'll like to help my channel, put a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the only thing you do to help me. If not, that's fine. If you do, thank you, because I'm getting close to my main goal of 2,000 subscribers. And now, let's get started of this AU of Digital Carnival explanation. Now let's get started. Of course, I have to remind you, I'm first gonna start story, characters, and my final thoughts on this video. Now let's start with story. Now, this was created by Baby on Tumblr, and the story of this AU basically Kane woke up not knowing what's going on, and you see Bubbles. And Bubbles is sort of his little gremlin assistant who basically helps him to remember what's going on, and maybe the reason why he's sort of stuck in his own game, understanding and rewiring everything what's going on. During this time, he walks in the sort of rooms passing door to door to understand what is going on and how to approach this. Especially he's not realizing it becoming more creepier, more darker, but yet sort of accidentally making sort of a boss battle by accident. What I mean is he sort of activated a sort of butterfly that have to follow what you think is sort of a kind of gift you find around the whole digital carnival sort of game. But no, this butterfly leads him to Pommy's first room. That room activated being sort of a boss battle. Now Kane had to fight basically Pommy off this battle, but Kane noticing something's up, specifically with Pommy, that was she was crying, because at the very beginning he heard someone's crying, but he doesn't know who it is. That you sort of suggested maybe was maybe Pommy. Well, yes and no, and this would make it sort of interesting. The crying could be anyone, could be Jack, could be Pommy, could be a different character, but it's always crying. This would make this sort of AU kinda creepy, but it also attempted to explain why someone is crying in this sort of digital carnival, because our main boss or ringleader on this sort of carnival is basically Kinger. Kinger is not in charge, but the only problem is Kinger sort of lost his mind. Of course, he always sort of loose mentally, but he quite literally sort of abused his own power and abused the people around him because he can. But interesting enough, Kane has a color. I mean, Kinger has a color, not just him, every single NPC in this sort of digital carnival. But it sort of slightly explains that the only one who can remove this color is actually Kinger, but because he sort of loses his mind or loses his memory every little while, he put it back without realizing he can actually remove it because he is free. But it leads into that wouldn't happen to Queenie of this digital carnival. Queenie sort of kind of died. It doesn't go full explanation. It's something that Kinger remembers, and he removed his own color, sort of telling her sort of her dead photo, saying, I couldn't help you, maybe I could maybe do something. But every time he remembers something, he automatically forgets it. It put back his own color and continued the madness. But it seems to me Kinger is sort of trying to deal with his own issues, but the completely wrong way. That he sort of punish everybody doing the same thing, doing what you program, but doing what you're supposed to do. Almost telling everybody to be alive. Stop following your sort of AI programming, but done in a way sort of twisted, because there are instances in the chapters that basically Kinger kind of plays with Pommy, trying to tell her, do your job, make me laugh, make me happy. And Pommy cannot do that because she keeps following her programming. But Kinger doesn't know how to explain or even that understands why he's so harsh on Pommy, not just her, everybody in the digital carnival. And this is the reason why you keep hearing sort of crying. You don't know it's Pommy, Jack, or Regatha. But there is another sick, twisted thing on this sort of AU carnival, because Jack did something very questionable and he get punished. In the story, they do explain that he is part of the first AI who actually killed a human being inside the carnival, but this way sort of being punished, stuck in his own room. But no one feeds him, only Regatha. But this is a twist. Regatha does something also equally as horrible as Jack. But the whole comic doesn't tell you, at least not yet, but she has blood in her hand, specifically in her side cheek, that we don't know she killed another human, she ate it, or what. And this is sort of the conversation that Ragathon wants to talk to Jack, but Jack doesn't want to talk, but knows the blood and started laughing. This is what you want to do. Talk. Tell me what you've done. And Jack started laughing. Now, doing this sort of read, I have noticed this sort of manga slash comic book is sort of kind of going back and forth, one in the past, one in the future, and to see the situation what Kane really is, and really figure out how to fix it. And even Kane, who is sort of not perfect, he is like the original King. He doesn't have sympathy, but he knows he wants to help out, and he tries his best to fix every single one every time he meets someone. But little by little, he's sort of realizing what actually is going on till the very end. But to be fair, the sort of comic book or manga is not fully finished, but yet it's still very intriguing. They add a lot of subtle things that feels super unique for this specific AU, because it doesn't feel like a riff-off. It feels sort of an inspiration or the evolution of the original Digital Circus. And Digital Carnival does it in a way it just feels refreshing. If they decide to reboot it, this is probably the best way to reboot Digital Circus in a way. Just make it sort of more like an isekai programmer who fall into their own video game. But I love it that Kane, this version, he tries his best to fix everything, but every time he fixes it, he just sort of opens sort of a blackboard inside the programming and understand what went wrong for that specific character, but also leave a lot of video game references here, like there's sort of kind of like a butterfly, sort of you follow it, you get rewarded, or a fact, sort of the login, sort of wait for a second, reloading to the next page or next programming, kind of sort of events, and also press X to follow, press Q to open the door, little things like that make this AU kind of special, especially how little goes to more dark areas, almost like Resident Evil, trying to open the door, you don't know if they're a boss battle or a zombie or what kind of creature will open next doing this door, or hear a noise, should I follow it or not. It gives you that sort of vibe that completely intrigues you to this AU. It's a sort of special AU who understand video game logic, horror, and sort of the digital characters of this AU. It's something that I do recommend a lot. It is that good. Now let's talk about the characters of this AU and also the DLC. Yes, they have DLC characters on this AU. Now let's get started off the character breakdown. Now, to be truly honest, Sin Baby's sort of profile of each AU character is sort of all over the place, even that they should post on their own Tumblr page saying, yeah, all my characters sort of all over the place, so you have to kind of dig really deep. And there's some copycats, so I don't know if this is the original profile of this AU or not. If not, I do apologize, but you get the idea. Hopefully I get each single profile right. Now let's get started with the first one. Kane. Now, his profile pretty much states that he's sort of a coder hired by this company who makes basically video game virtual reality. But one day on his office, found a sort of game hidden. This game was called the Major Digital's Carnival. That he sort of got sucked in. Now he's sort of trapped and attempted to get out. But during the game, he sort of forgets who he is. But luckily, he has a bubble that he created to help him, so remind him who he is, what he must do. But he also realized all the PCs become bloodthirsty, but he doesn't know why. But on top of this, each single AI cannot be trusted because something is wrong with them. But except for one, that it doesn't tell which character he trusts, but I have to guess between maybe Pommy or basically Bubble. And yes, Bubble is still Kane's assistant of this AU, but Bubble is sort of more a gremlin type of character that's sort of adorable, sweet, trying to remind you, being sort of an asshole a little bit, a sort of sarcastic tone with Ken being sort of upbeat he really is. And that's sort of the good relationship they have of this specific AU. And that's all I can say for this specific profile. Now let's get started with the next character on the list. Now, our second character will be Pommy, the Jester. Her basically is a character that you first fight of this AU with several different bosses. She is the first boss who will be sort of easy to defeat because Pommy is sort of created as the type of boss that easy to beat because she usually, after finish her first act or her introductions, she completely failure. But because of this, she's sort of the failure type of character that you rely on because you become your best friend. But also she's sort of bipolar type of character that she's naive, nice, panicking, trying to help out, but also when the fight gets real, she sort of runs away. This would make it sort of difficult to beat, but also easy to fight because you kind of predict what should be her next move. But at the very end, she doesn't want to fight because she's not actually good at it. She just want to have fun and make jokes intended to make you laugh. This will make Pommy a very reliable research and also comrade with Kane. Now, her design has completely changed of the original. This was more kind of jester, more kind of like the back old day of the 16 or 40s sort of jester kind of look. It really is a little bit different than the original, but it does make sense, especially what she's doing in the carnival. So she's more traditional jester like. Other than that, that's all we know. Let's continue on the next character on the list. Now, our next character or next boss character be Rakatha. Now, this character have sort of changed and also her boss fight because she is the next boss you fight in this AU. She is sort of the host type of boss that expects you to be perfect, eat etiquette, and eat cake. But if you sort of don't do exactly like the etiquette, she will snap is tempted to take you down, especially if you knock her door. If you knock her 2 times, she automatically attacks. If you mark 3 times, she actually welcomes you with open arms. But her friendship with Pommy is sort of interesting because she is part of the oldest friends that Rakatha actually have of this version. Because Pommy is not exactly a etiquette type of woman. She's kind of clumsy, slimy, all over the place. And Rakatha, she's sort of okay with it because it's old friend, she has old habits, and is trying to become better, but she knows she's sort of the type of family girl she accepts. And this is what Rakatha is of this boss game. But top of this, her dress is completely different from the original. She is sort of more elegant, more sort of 1800s ladylike with her clothes. But she is a perfectionist. If she sees you not being elegant or anything like that, she snaps and tempted to but she stab you to death. That's sort of the type of character Raka really is. But yet, she is sweet and kind and tempted to actually help you if you be kind and courteous. But she does have a dark secret. Later on, you will find out why. That's basically what this record thing. You have to admit, this is actually the most interesting AU character of a record that I have seen yet. She's just sort of interesting because she's sort of trying to be kind and sweet like the original one, but yet she is very interesting because she's always hiding something in her own life that she has blood in her hands and chose to not talk to no one except for maybe Jack is the only one who did the same thing to her. But we don't know what happened to this other player or whoever was this other player who came in the digital circus or digital carnival in this case. Now let's talk about the other character on the roster. Now our next character or our third boss you fight on this AU is basically Gangle. Now Gangle, this version, it is very different, that she is sort of not sort of the weak, soft kind type of character and sort of sensitive like the original digital circus. The digital carnival version of Gangle is very different. Her sort of title job is basically show teller, that she's sort of an announcer, the basically the representative of the digital carnival. but she usually her fighting abilities or where her sort of ranking or territory is sort of showmanship. That she does sort of things to help the player to copy her what she does. If you don't copy her exactly, she'll be mad and slit your throat. And that's what her sort of kind of fighting ability or sort of fighting level she actually does. We don't know her personality completely, but yet I think she's sort of unstable. She doesn't have sort of a strong personality. She just wants to perform the right act. She is sort of obsessive. Of course, she does have one friend who will be Pommy, that she believes she is the best actor performer in the digital carnival, but because she doesn't understand empathy or relationship that well, every time Pommy cries on front of the stage, she thinks it's sort of a great performance. In actuality, it's not. She's just losing her mind in that second. And that's why I tell you how Gango is sort of kind of blind now, but she sort of dents the situation she really is, because at the very end she is sort of a AI. But I think she is sort of one of those AI not yet broken her own programming like the rest of the digital carnival characters. That's what made her kind of dangerous, because she will follow the digital code exactly till they say to stop of one of the programmers. That will be maybe in the near future Kane. For right now, she's still locked and manipulated by Ashley Kinger of this sort of new digital circus, or aka digital carnival. Now, I have to say her design, she's still the same as the original character, but yet did something completely different. Because this character does have the mask and the ribbon. They added maybe a bell to her own sort of color, because each single character has the color. That color is sort of represents sort of the kind of control. If they lose their mind or do something they shouldn't have, that color kind of makes them to listen follow to the program. But besides that, one of the biggest interesting things is this Gango has 4 arms and technically just a wobble body of string. She doesn't have a form body, but a wobble type of string. And that is just sort of interesting. It also makes her kind of dangerous if you fight her in the AU, or at least if this was an official video game. But it's still kind of fascinating, interesting what type of direction they went of this specific character. Now let's talk about the next character of this digital carnival. Now our 4th character or 4th boss will be probably Kinger, the controller of all the other characters and the one who can escape his own bestie chain of his own neck. We have said this very beginning that each single character has sort of like a collar on their neck. That Kinger can he remove his own, but also put it back in. But at the same time, he forgets he can actually do that. But every time he sees it, he puts it back in. We don't know why he does that, because maybe he loses memory or trying to face his trauma, what happened to his wife, Queenie. But we don't know. It's sort of just speculation in how he feels or little memories he remembers about her and that sort of event what actually happened to her. Because of this, Kinger just sort of reflects all his pain around everybody, specifically around Pommy, because she makes her laugh, but even that Pommy is not a really good jester. But if you fight him on his own level, he actually is sort of kind of like a knight sort of jester. What I mean is, if you fight him, he doesn't care about you, he just want to laugh. So you have to play one-on-one with sort of lancing or basically playing chess, or a different type of game that fits for him, so he can have fun and make fun of you. But if you make him laugh, he probably will let you pass, maybe, because Kinger is sort of unpredictable. But I do have to say, his design feels the same as the original, but added sort of details. He has sort of now a shiny sort of halo to show how bright he is. But on top of this, his gloves has this sort of another kind of like bracelets tied to him. Now he has sort of a cane around his hand like a royal king. Of course, he's the one who controls everything in this digital carnival, but he sort of forgets his sort of situations and sort of dumped his old trauma on the rest of the characters, especially Pami and especially the new character or the new player in the game. Because at the very end, he doesn't care about you, but he only wants to laugh and forget what he did. That's what basically makes him very dangerous. He's sort of unpredictable. But besides that, that's all I can say about this character, because at the very end, he is sort of kind of disturbed because what happened to his wife, at least that's what I assume. But also, he's the one who sort of broke out his sort of programming the first. But after that, he's sort of vague what happens next. Something that happened to his wife made him sort of forget every single time he does something horrific and sort of do a sort of episode, not a words, of his own trauma. But other than that, that's all I can say about this specific character of Kinger. Now let's talk about the next character on the roster. Now, our next character or next boss will be Jack, or his sort of title name, the Rabbit. Now, this is interesting about this specific character. Because of Jack, he doesn't really have a very specific level. His level was never fully finished, but his sort of theme is sort of black and white television or theaters that he sort of relying on the old black and white cartoons back in the day. But because of this, made it more dangerous on his own level. He also is the most bloodthirsty because his power is sort of toon power. That in other words, he can stretch, bend, or move, or break the laws of physics on his level. But of course, he's there because he is the part of the most bloodthirsty and most dangerous. But he doesn't know what his sort of theme supposed to be because his theme wasn't finished. But beware, every time you fight him, he will go mad and start laughing, especially when he sees blood. To be fair, he is part of the first one who actually murdered a real player on his own game. Because of this, Kinger sort of kind of arrested him in his own playroom to make sure he would be safe and save the rest not being so bloody and murder. But at the same time, how the story, he's the one who sort of no one wants to get near of because he's just sort of unpredictable and uncontrollable. The only thing he can control him is sort of the sort of collar he has around his neck, looking like a chain. And that's basically what this version of Jack really is. Be fair, it's sort of the most interesting design from Jack with other AUs. He's sort of very traditional, almost black and white Mickey Mouse with the sort of only trousers he only has. Well, pants with 2 buttons and sort of a chain around his ankles and his neck. And he still kept his gloves, but the rest of it he's sort of half naked, but yet he feels sort of unsettling and dangerous just besides his own design. It's just making it sort of interesting to look at, and also one of the characters just really stands out because he's the only one who is stuck to black and white color because he not yet decide what type of color his design will be. So he's sort of stuck to this old traditional black and white cartoon look. Because of this, he just sort of made it more visually interesting and dangerous. Now, I got nothing else to say from this specific character. Let's talk about the next character roster on the list. Now, this is the point of this sort of roster getting to be a little fuzzy because in the temple page of Sam Baby, his or her sort of list is all over the place. So I'm kind of struggling to find which is the right sort of roster for this specific AU. For right now, let's start with Abel. Now, Abel is sort of very interesting because Abel is not sort of an AI, he is a real person who got stuck in the game, who actually is a brother of Cain. But the only problem is he was the first one who got stuck in the digital carnival first, but trying to figure out how to escape, even that he's sort of the one who created the game. But the only problem is, after he defeated the final boss, who would be sort of Kinger, he realized he cannot escape. So he decided to stop finish the game. He decided to go to the first level and hide and figure out what to do next. Because of this, he made good friends with Zubo, who actually let him to sleep in her room and let him hide around every time he sees Cain. So it allowed him to actually think and figure out what would be next of the next step of it was supposed to do. But interesting enough, they sort of forget he has a brother because of Kane, because Kane came in to trying to do something, but he doesn't remember what. And this is the reason why maybe Kane is here to help his brother to escape while realizing you cannot really escape of this sort of digital world. But interesting enough, Kane feels sort of half empty till you find Abe the first time. But make this sort of interesting. Some of you are wondering, who is Abe? Well, Abe is not a real character from Digital Circus. He's sort of a fan-made character made of Digital Flight Club that got really popular, that everybody now using as sort of like a brother character from Kane off on your own AU. You could choose to reinterpret it however you want, because he sort of doesn't have much of backstory. The only thing we know, he's sort of a brother of Kane, or the lost brother, step brother. You could change it whatever you think. But this version, Abe is sort of more competent, more proud, more agile of his sort of situation. That's why he sort of stopped playing the game, because there is no point. But I have to say, his design is still good. He's usually the same type of character who has a poker face and sort of a body and two hands, and sometimes a hat. But sort of compliments his own brother. He sort of have this sort of representative of an entertainer kind of look, sort of kind of player. Of course, that's his title because he is the player. But we don't know what happened to him in the story. And you have to say, maybe he's the one who got killed by Jackrabbit or Wreckathon or either or. But his profile says he is sort of surviving because of Zumo. But once more, we don't know what happened to Zumo. Zumo is not yet out of the story. So once again, it's sort of your interpretation. What happened to Abe, the brother of Kane? Now let's get started with the next character on the roster. Now our next character will be Cosmo. That is probably the most interesting character of this list, because he's sort of the secret boss in this AU game. Specifically, Cosmo was sort of the main attraction who basically introduced the player. In fact, he's basically the one who basically replaced Pommy till he actually went mad. Then Pan replaced Cosmo, because that Cosmo realized when he got sentient, this is sort of pointless, because everybody started to lose mad or be dread of their own madness. And Cosmo is not all about that. He wants to have fun. He wants to make people happy. So he never actually tried to feed the player or do anything like that. But that completely backfired. What I mean is, he became more mad, more vicious, especially his comedy, who attempted to make people laugh. His comedy became more edgy, more darker, more dangerous, till he actually broke his own mind. Because of this, he decided to remove the color, but Kinger advised him to not do that, because Kinger has a reason why everybody has the color, to help them to put in the right direction when they need, not to go completely mad. But because of this, Cosmo did not listen and remove his color. But at the same time, Pommy gets sentient, Cosmo lost completely his mind and became abstracted. That's what happened to Cosmo, and this is the reason why he became sort of the secret boss of his own level, in other words. That's all I can say this specific character. Yeah, I thought that sort of interesting and darker story of what happened in their old version of Cosmo. Of course, I do like Cosmo's design. It feels sort of more kind of, I want to say traditional, or more the standards of a carnival clown of this time period. Be a feel this sort of kind of like kind of stage performance type of Cosmo, in other words. That's the best way to describe, with this yellow hat, bleeding, I don't know how, blue neck or bracelet or whatever called this right here is neck. But at the end, it's just sort of very appealing. It still feels like Cosmo, just a little change, but yet it actually works. But I don't know how you feel for this new version of Cosmo. Tell me down below. Let me know. Now let's talk about the next character on the list. Now our next character, you could say she's sort of the secret boss fight again, but at the same time, this version do explain what happened to Queen of this AU Carnival, because that she was sort of the second character of this AI will work of its own program, aware they are games, but trying to make their own choices. But she realized the colors they have was a little bit too disturbing for the queen. But her husband, King, wasn't really that crazy about it. He was, oh, this is a thing, we accept it. And Queen Mi could not accept this. She just didn't like the idea and creeped her out. This is the reason they attempted to basically kind of hack Queenie to remove her color to be her free, like Kinger. But the moment she released her own color, she became sort of abstracted. And this is what actually happened from Queenie. But interesting enough, Queenie used to be sort of a commentator with King with their own boss battle. That she's the one who sort of sees what happened to the character if he's here served an announcer, and she and King are the ones who announce every single thing what the player does during the game till you face them in the final battle. But this is the thing, she sort of didn't like the situation. She feels sort of lonely. Not being lonely when she came sort of sentient with her husband. They realize this is a great day of their lives, but little by little realizing it's just sort of boring and lonely because the rest of the characters still plays with their own AI. They do not yet become sentient. And that's the thing what made her kind of mad. This is the thing why she removed her own color, because there is nothing to do, or there is nothing to really conversate or do something to distract, just to go mad and keep your own thoughts getting crazier and crazier. And this is the reason why Kinger sort of doesn't want to remember what happened to his wife, because he saw that when she removed the color and just become digitized outwards. And this is why Kinger has started memory loss. Every time he gets his memory, removes his color, he freaks out and forgets why he removed his color, and he puts it back in. Sort of like a repetitive sort of deal with his own way to process the situation, what happened to Queenie. Now, her design or boss battle is not really explained. The only thing is she's sort of a narrator, and maybe we have to say she's probably the secret boss behind King boss fight, secret boss fight, if you defeat King outwards. At least that's what I chose to interpret, or just an announcer that you never really see. Either or, that's sort of what she is. Now, her design is very similar to Kinger, but just sort of added a little more things. She has sort of the halo ring, her collar, but her hands are now covered with a long professional sort of glove for basically royalty, and her design is more poofy. And that's basically it. They did a little upgrade, but yet very distinct and different as his own husband. But you can see the pattern she has to be there together. They're related or married sort of way. That'd make her kind of interesting. Now let's talk about the other character on the list. Now, our final character will be Zubor, our final boss battle. At least, depends how you read the sort of script. But besides that, what her title is, Game Master. And her level or her room is basically a maze or a fun house. But this sort of level is sort of connected to Zubor. Depends what type of friend or enemy you are. If your friend, the sort of traps and illusions are very friendly and jokesy, but you're the enemy or you have someone she doesn't like, every single trap and sort of illusion are very dangerous and tempted to actually kill you. But interesting enough, she's sort of a neutral character. I think because she's not fully awake yet, because we don't really understand, or the story is not yet introduced, she is what type of character she really is. We don't actually know her, but the only thing know, she is kind of good friends with Pommy or Ragatha, but she kind of hates Jax, but we don't know why or interesting, or even that how she really feels about Kinger or Queenie. The only thing we know that she could be very dangerous at her level, because she's sort of a not the hand-to-hand combat. She's sort of more like a strategist that you have to play smart to beat her in her level. Of course, if you do, you get rewarded for a prize or a gift or a thank you, or just let you pass. Of course, if she actually likes you, but you piss her off, you get nothing and get killed off when her own dangerous traps. And that's basically what this Zubo version really is. I can't tell you much of the personality. I assume that she's personality is the same personality as the Digital Circus to this digital carnival, but her design is very similar to the original design of Digital Circus, but just sort of slightly changed. She feels more kind of carnival or inspire. In other words, what I mean is she has sort of theme that you easily recognize with the rest of the characters in this cast. It just fits her right. She feels more poofy, in other words. Yeah, I think poofy is not the right word. More etiquette representative of her entertainment. I think that's the best way to describe it. But other than that, that's all we know about this character. Even that we don't know she's fully sentient or yet not fully in control herself, just on the whole programming. That maybe little by little she finally opens up and realize she is AI and become more sentient. At least that's what I chose to interpret for right now. Things may change when the next issue comes out of this specific AU. Now let's talk about the DLC extra of this AU version of it. Of course, some of you are wondering what DLC means. DLC basically means more downloadable content with the game. There's sort of extra you can actually buy in the sideline because they couldn't finish or the game was super popular. They created more extra content so you can download it or buy a little bit more fee to get that extra basically pack, in other words. Now, it's not a lot, it's just a little bit, but it's sort of kind of interesting. I think the first DLC is basically the blue Jester and the red Jester from Pomni. They do anything different? No, it just sort of changed different colors of sort of her faces of she's sort of happy, nervous, or angry. And something that what you choose to have in the game. But the little lore they have basically is sort of Pommy's sisters. If you fight her, her sister reappear to help her finish the job. That's basically what this extra DLC is of Pommy. Let's talk about the next DLC of this packet. Our next DLC is probably Randy, the captain, the brother of Rekitha, that his theme is sort of a sailor, but it also helps her sister where she needs extra muscle. And that's basically it. In fact, this type of characters are basically kind of swap the character you want male or female, but added a little bit of lore that is his own brother. We don't know his personality, but it seems he's sort of very cocky and confident as his own sister, but also you can tell maybe he also has the sort of issue that snaps also when nothing goes his way. At least that's why I chose to interpret it of his own design. But I feel he's more hand-to-hand combat more than her sister because he's sort of a guy. That's the only thing I know about this character, but he is designed being sort of a military man that is sort of interesting choice for Rekitha's brother because that's sort of unique because the original Digital Circus she doesn't have a family member that she yet spoke. But other than that, that's all we know of this extra DLC information new character of this packet. Now let's talk about the next character on the list. Now the next pack would probably be Gengo, that she has a sister who actually played the instrument, multiple. In fact, she's her partner when she decides to switch up in the fight scene or change the different character design of her own character of her own basic fight scene. But other than that, we don't know much about her sister. The only thing we know is she is sort of a person who loves music and plays every single music in her own sort of territory. But interestingly enough, I think she is sort of the one who controls you by music. At least that's how I chose to interpret it because Gengo, she controls you if she doesn't like you. But once more, it's a different way to basically change her body skin in the game. That's basically her DLC. Now let's talk about the next character on the list. Now this DLC is from Ashley Jack that they added a little sister who basically could not have a babysitter because she's just a little kind of trickster. Now you have to sort of deal with her in the game, especially in his own boss game, or maybe help you in your own fights whenever you ask. Because at the very end, she's just extra contact in the game after you finish the whole game. But other than that, we don't know much about her. But it seems to me it's one of those characters could be a little annoying, especially how the sort of the roster kind of states Jack is sort of the most dangerous one of all the other bosses. Having more help from him, it seems more difficult to play even more. But other than that, her design is similar to his older brother, sort of black and white, sort of traditional cartoon from the back in the 50s and 40s now words, and also probably have some toon power, but not the same level as his own brother. But other than that, that's all I say. But the DLC did state on this own little naming convention right here that she get entertained by art. So I'm guessing you get extra bonus points or a certain item to give her to be entertained, to leave you alone. At least that's what I chose to believe, because in this sort of synopsis doesn't go in that deep on detail, in other words. After that, let's talk about the next character, or the final DLC character on this list. Now, this final DLC character is sort of interesting because Kinger has a brother now called King. King is basically want to kill his own brother and his queen because he feels they're insane. But because of this, you have to basically meet him before you meet his first level or final level of Kinger. King is the one who sort of direct you in a completely different direction to get to her brother, to assassinate him much faster. And this is what I mean. This is sort of DLC. They give you extra content like this to make the game more interesting and fun and more lore. And I'm finding it fascinating why Kinger's brother, King, wants to kill his own brother. Maybe he realized he was go too mad, or something completely different. Maybe he wants to have control of the digital carnival. We don't know, but in the very end, make this sort of interesting. After that, we don't know much about Kinger's brother, King, but we know he has a more darker, more suave look than his own brother. His own brother, King, is more kind of proud, more bright, and his younger brother is sort of kind of chillax, sort of low brow, darker, more sophisticated, and also has the knife in his hand to stab his own brother and her wife. All of that, we don't know much about him. The only thing you know, he doesn't trust or like his brother and his wife. What is your own opinion of each DLC of the character, and what sort of things they should use in this specific AU video game of the Digital Circus, or in this case Digital Carnival? Now let's talk about my final thoughts of this AU. I wasn't expecting Kane to be the main lead. Usually it's Palmy. In fact, you follow every other AU, it's always Palmy, because that's sort of the traditional way to introduce the digital world. But this time they decided to do something very different. They follow Kane. That itself changed all the dynamics. It also explained why Kane is always should be the ringleader of Digital Circus, even that his programming is very flawed, but it also shows you the reason why he should be the main ringleader, not other characters like Kane, Palmy, Ragatha, or basically Jax, because all of them are flawed, all of them have issue, but they don't know how to deal with it the right way. They chose to not follow their programming, even that the program should be the right way to follow, how to use this to help the main player. And it showed you why Kinger, what he always felt very exactly of his own programming, even that maybe one day he became sentient, or even that he is sentient in his own original AU storytelling, because it really shows you why King is the right character to actually follow, the one who controls everything, because he actually cares, even that he doesn't understand empathy. He tries to change. He tries to do the right thing around all the people around him. That itself shows you why he is the right character, control everything, even that he's very flawed. He tries to do his best, even as the character running final or the boss battle is overwhelming, he goes to extra steps to make sure this was done Right. That's what it made this AU so interesting. That sort of body swap choices of who met who, what kind of genre makes so much sense. The reason why they chose Kane as the main lead. And especially, I was surprised how horrific and how strongly lead of the sort of isekai genre really is, because they fit a very specific genre of a isekai, the program who fall in their own video game and the one who trying to fix everything what went wrong, but they did it the way feels so refreshing, unique, the unexpected, and also this sort of mystery twist you don't know seen coming. It's one of those that just kind of grabs you the first time you read the chapter because it feels so refreshing and unique. But other than that, I can't really say much. It's just I'm hooked to see what happens next after the next page, because you don't know what kind of twist or kind of trick will happen next in this digital AU Carnival. But that's all I can say. What is your opinion of this? When you think of it, you enjoy it, you like the main leads, you like the change, you feel refreshed or not? Tell me down below. Let me know. I got nothing else to say. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.